better diagnosis over the years or industrialization, and probably I suspect the longevity in Indian population also is gradually rising. So these factors may be responsible, and maybe in next 2 decades probably we would catch up with the figures would catch up with the Western figures. Now, multiple myeloma among the data from our own institute is basically similar to the different spectrum, and the main key player out of mostly 83-84% of cases. We did compare some of this data from Professor Kyle's paper, which was published in 2003, and median age. Now, this is a hospital-based data from our own center, so which appeared to be much less, 12 years younger. And I believe that because age 5 in India, that 65% of population is under 35 years of age. So I'm really not surprised that you are seeing more of younger population. There are very few people actually above the 65 to 95 or 100 years of age, so in that bracket. Another interesting, like the almost 12% people did have the under 40 years of age myeloma, and this has been consistent in last 4 or 5 years or so. We probably have larger volume of disease in terms of bone pains, anemia, rising serum creatinine, and also the ISS stage. The higher proportion probably would indicate that patients coming very late or diagnosed much later with the larger volume of disease. And also, what is not shown here is the extramedullary disease and hypodiploid in 5% of them. And deletion 13q14 was in 56%, and the 414, the one of those so-called high risk, was in their 16% of patients. These figures are more or less similar to what really have been published from the international literature, and from some of the other centers, the more or less similar figures are there. There have not been really many randomized trials in India about the induction therapy. We did one such study to see whether the thal-dexa, which was easily available to us, is non-inferior to the lenalidomide and dexamethasone, and we had almost 202 patients in this study. And what we found actually in our hands, that the response rate, both CR and VGPR and PR, was similar in both the arms, and so was the PFS as well as the overall survival in this study. Now, subsequently, we have started another study, the VRD, comparing with the Len-dexa, and this is the most initial results, which for this presentation I just analyzed, of 105 patients which have been randomized till March 2015, and we have about 76% BRD and 71% for the Len-dexa after the 4 cycles of therapy. And the curves at just about 1 year follow-up seems to be favoring the BRD, at least at this time point. We will know really next 1 year or so in the follow-up. Transplant activity has been gradually developing in India. Now we have nearly more than 50 centers all over the country, and many of these centers have been in the recent years. And we have now Indian Stem Cell Transplant Registry, which is collecting data from all these centers. Actually, they're making really good efforts in almost last 10 years or so. And we have now nearly more than 10,000 patients till year 2015 who have undergone transplant, and nearly about till 2014, we have 3,500 plus patients who have undergone autologous transplant, and 50% of them were for multiple myeloma. The algorithm for myeloma transplant at our center is more or less similar. What you normally have, you give 4 to 6 cycles of induction therapy, reassess. If they respond, take them for transplant. And if they have no response, then you give them second-line therapy. If they respond, go for transplant. And this is the data from my own institute. Now, this is the almost 45 to 50 patients are undergoing transplant every year. And what I can really say that the bottom line, the
the mortality rate over the years, which used to be 3 to 4% or 5%, in last 2.5 years has become 0. So with the time, like as the learning curve goes by, these figures do improve too. This is the data on 225 patients which have been transplanted year 2013, and we have nearly median follow-up more than 8 years on these patients. And this is the complete remission rate over these years, and this is like 54% in these cohort of 225 patients. And this is something interesting, the patients who achieved CR, the PFS was significantly higher, almost more than 7 years. And at 15 years, we have 18% of patients still alive, progression-free. And overall survival, similarly, at 15 years, we have 38% of patients being alive. In fact, our first 2 patients, which we transplanted in 1993, they continue to absolutely disease-free, with SFLC also being negative throughout. And this is their survival curves. The CR definitely is one of the most important predictor for outcome. And what we found that patients who have extramedullary disease, those who have received more than 2 lines of therapy, and they have the inferior outcome, both PFS and overall survival. And once you achieve CR, definitely it was one of the most important positive prognostic parameter. Maintenance, we really have no randomized any particular trial, but we have been using only low-dose thalidomide from the beginning, 50 milligram per day, and it seems to be quite high. We do not really have that much of complications of neuropathy, and most patients are able to go for 6 months to 1 year without much of dose modification, and subsequently you really need the dose modification. And the recent years, lenalidomide and bortezomib has also been started. And what I can show you in the last, similar to many other experience internationally, that with the maintenance therapy, nearly 4 to 5% of patients do improve their response with the time. And this is we just compared the data from patients who underwent transplant versus the same time period, those who could not undergo transplant, and especially those who are under 65 years of age and serum creatinine of 2.5 or less. And this shows clearly the transplant was superior. This is not a randomized, just a simple comparison from the rest of the patients who did not undergo transplant. We have made an effort to start doing the minimal residual disease in our transplant patients in the past 2 years, and using the 5-color flow panel. And this is the 0.01% as the limit of detection for MRD. Among 71 patients which we have studied, in 56 we have the data post-transplant also. And what we found that those who are 10% patients were MRD negative to begin with at the pre-transplant, it rose to the 46% following transplant. This is something similar to the recent data published in JCO year before. So more or less similar to that we could achieve nearly 46% MRD negativity following transplant. So to conclude, the biology of myeloma appears to me similar to what we have in the West. We have more advanced disease. We probably need more data on cytogenetics and fish to really see what will be happening. The response to induction therapy, whatever data we have, seems to be similar. We have been using one of the plus point in India, we have a generic preparations of thalidomide, lenalidomide, and bortezomib. So it's much easier for us to really use those. But now with the new rules and regulations, we will not be able to have the new molecules till the patent and those things are over. So that is something which really, and the transplant, now we have many centers, and the cost in India definitely for transplant seems to be much, much lower. We really need many more collaborative studies, especially in the patients who have relapsed refractory, where you need second or third line therapy. Thank you so much.